SCW Rewind returns with WWE Payback 2020, the review, the night where Roman Reigns' historic WWE Universal Championship run begins. Of course, it took place on the 30th of August 2020. We are a full 1,087 days later, and Roman Reigns, when he won that championship, still holds it to this day. He has not been pinned. He has not been submitted. In fact, he's added the WWE Championship to the collection in the meantime, and now is walking around as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. We're going to be looking back, ladies and gentlemen, at where it all began for Roman Reigns, giving our take as well later in the video also of the redefined characteristics of Roman at that time, how it's morphed going forward, and how basically we've seen it play out. And as well as that, we've got a whole PLE to talk about, pay-per-view back at that time as well there. And as you can see, I'm not on my own. I'm joined by the one and the only, a regular on this channel. In fact, here so often you feel he's taking over. Of course, it's the one, the only, NX Steve. Steve, how you doing?
I'm very good, man. This pay-per-view was a bit of a... It's the whole Thunderdome thing just completely threw me out because it's been so long and it's been... I was like, oh my God, I thought it was going to be really painful. It wasn't too bad. This ain't the best pay-per-view, but it's okay in places and just okay in the rest. But yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Like you said, there were some hits, there were some misses in this show, and I think sometimes that adds a bit of flavour and excitement towards it. But you mentioned there was the Thunderdome. Of course, that's something that's interesting about this because, of course, when you look at the attendance of this show, it's nobody. There's no one there. We're in the pandemic. We are 2020. We are the people that actually, the very few people that probably said, we're going to go back and watch one of these shows. Because I know a lot of people I talk to, they go, I'm never going back and watching that era of wrestling ever again. To go back and watch it now, because obviously we've been used to having fans back in attendance for well over 2 years. Money in the Bank 2021 was the official relaunch of fans. Of course, there were some fans in attendance at WrestleMania 37. What are your thoughts when you go back now and you see a Thunderdome? You see all the screens, all the TVs, people turning up on those and obviously hearing sound effects, piped in crowd noise. Obviously, when you see superstars walking down the aisle, there's nobody side by side to sort of give the high fives to. They're just walking to the ring. It's just lighting and equipment, nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, at one point, Matt Riddle comes in and he's spud in thin air because there's no one there to spud him. And it's just like... Why even bother, man? I think the problem with the Thunderdome era is that it has a lot of stigmas about it. Like, it's remembered for certain things, like Drew McIntyre having his entire 2 championship reigns in the Thunderdome, so he's never been a world champion in front of a crowd. Asuka being the hero of the women's division that whole period. And yeah, what we get into it later, but the whole Rey Mysterio, Dominik Mysterio, Seth Rollins story, and it's like these are just simple. They're just simple things that are associated with the Thunderdome. It's like normally you can just remember certain stories from different periods in time, but it's just the Thunderdome has its own stigma about it.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, it's a weird feeling to go back and watch a show again without the fans in attendance. Of course, it's always much better with fans being there, but one thing I noticed, and I'm going to make a soccer reference here, ladies and gents, obviously watching a lot of the Premier League, obviously during the pandemic as well at that period, it was a big difference of where there was no fans in attendance for a whole calendar season. One thing you would notice, you'd hear a lot of people talking, a lot of people shouting, coaches making their voices heard, players, you'd see who are the vocal ones of your team or perhaps of opposition teams. And for some teams, it worked out better with no fans being there than times when there is, say, 20, 30, 40,000 fans each and every game running down your back. With the Thunderdome, that played in some of the storylines. You notice that in a couple of the matches. One match really on this show benefits with the idea that there's no one in the crowd because you can actually hear the story play out throughout the match through them talking. It actually happens as well with the kickoff match as well, which, you know, arguably some may say is good, maybe not so. Some others, obviously Dave Meltzer, I will tell you already, does not give it a high rating, but still there were lots to take from this show, and I must admit I'm looking forward to diving into it. And the Thunderdome, a very special time, of course, when you look back at it, but hopefully a time that we will never go back to. But just before we go back in time to that show, quickly we'll go into our chat. We've got Mo in the house. Mo, thank you for checking us out. Hope you are keeping well. Says hi. Two Sweet Carl from On the Mark Wrestling Podcast here as well. Says, damn, must have missed you hitting 2K subscribers. Congrats. Thank you very much. It's very kind to you to say indeed. Same from Robbie Collins as well. They're congratulating on 2K as well. Thank you very much there indeed. Hope you're keeping well, Robbie. And Pierre in the house as well. Does I think Roman will be at Payback this year? I can confirm he will not be at Payback this year. He's not advertised for the show. He's currently carrying an injury as well. Do not expect to see Roman Reigns there, but he is on this show. He's involved in the main event of this show. It is the start of the head of the table, the tribal chief, the wise man Paul Heyman in his corner, all of that jazz and more. But before we do go into things, what we will say literally to kick things off is that we have a kickoff match. We have Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott versus the IIconics to kick things off. Now, NXT, I do know that you did not get to see this match, have the opportunity, so I will breeze through it for everybody to let everyone know what was going on. So pretty much this is the story of the IIconics are the World Joe tag team, of course, the Aussies, the loudmouths, as you will. I must admit, I do miss them in WWE. Liv and Ruby, of course, had their team together as the Riott Squad. They had their breakup. Liv Morgan had gone off and done her own thing. Ruby was a rival in 2020 of Liv, but then they were getting back on the same page again, or Ruby wanted to get back on the same page again, wanted to prove to Liv that they should be a team once again. And of course, we have the match built up with these two teams here. The IIconics saying that Ruby's intentions are not right and Liv is wrong, having the team back together. And of course, proving that will make this night iconic. Billy early on counters Ruby as well, throwing Ruby actually into Liv's knees, who's sitting on the turnbuckle. Liv also runs into the ropes at one point and Ruby just tags herself in. So you can see that the sanction is there quite early on with the Riott Squad. Ruby refusing to tag Liv Morgan as well before the IIconics take advantage to tackle Liv, and they also take out Ruby. Ruby's in the ring, and you got Billy kind of screaming of the idea that, you don't love her, you're not her friend. Also accusing as well the time when Liv was on the corner. They actually accused Ruby of doing the blindside attack, not the IIconics, which Liv weirdly enough kind of fell into, which she shouldn't have done, let's be brutally honest. It was quite clear that the IIconics had hit her. But when you go on further, Liv debates whether to walk out on her tag team partner, walk out on the match. Ruby is screaming for her to come back. Billy Kay is very much, go on, off you go, feel free to get out of here. But Liv does come back, makes the tag, makes the hot tag, gets into the action. Of course, Ruby is tagged back into the match, and the IIconics do hit the finish on her, the Deja Vu. And of course, Liv makes the save at that point, hits the Oblivion on Peyton Royce when they tried to do the same to her. We see a double knees from Liv, of course, one of her actual signature moves she uses now, and a right kick from Ruby to pick up the win. And they do confirm they are back together as a team. But of course, as we know, that was kind of short-lived, really, because, well, Liv Morgan now is, well, she's been a tag team star, but she's also been a big single star since then. Ruby right now, of course, is Ruby Soho in AEW. Sadly, the IIconics are not with WWE either. This match just goes under 9 minutes. Mr. Dave Meltzer rated this a 1.75 rated on the stars. For me, I'm going to give it a 2. I kind of liked the story elements of it, but there were a couple of moments of this match that I kind of fell to believe in. I didn't believe in Liv Morgan actually walking out on a tag team partner because of the fact that the hit was so obvious from the IIconics. But if it happened with other areas of the match where she was being refused to be tagged in, what am I doing here? That I would have believed more. But hey, they were back as a team, and it was a good fill of time for the kickoff. So I'll give them that. Certainly some positivity. But NXT, we'll move on to the meat and bones then, shall we? Let's move on to the main show where I know I can bring you involved in this. And I'm going to start off, before we go with any video package, I'm just going to quickly ask you about the commentary team because, well, for SmackDown, for their matches, we have Michael Cole and Corey Graves. For the Raw commentary side, we have Tom Phillips, Byron Saxton, and one Samoa Joe. What were your thoughts of Joe being on commentary? Of course, that takes me to a throwback. I forgot he was on commentary.
Joe will always be infamous for wearing that poncho at WrestleMania when it poured down with rain, unfortunately. But Joe's quality, he has the gift of the gab. He can talk on a mic. His promos in ring are infamously famous, especially with the I favorably remember the ones where he would talk about Jeff Hardy and his rehabilitation or rehab and all that kind of stuff, because they were absolute killers. Even Randy Orton one time in ring reacted to him. But no, Joe's a great voice. It's something that I hope he transitions into once he finishes his in ring days, because he definitely has a great future as a color commentator.
Yeah, he did some great work throughout his time in WWE around that period. I just, it kind of slipped your brain that that's what he was doing. Of course, how can you forget the
Yeah.
puncher moment of WrestleMania 37, like you mentioned? And, you know, for me, I just thought Joe adds a different layer dynamic because where he's been in the ring, he's had a sadistic side. He kind of gives that sort of knowledge of what the heel would be thinking, what the face would be thinking. I liked that he brought that to the commentary table. And with Tom Phillips, I've always been a big fan of his work as well. Him, Saxton, and Joe, they just worked quite well as a trio. I quite enjoyed that lineup.
For me, I'm not Saxton's biggest fan. I think Saxton worked best when he was with Corey because Corey Graves endlessly ribbing on him is the funniest thing in the world. But otherwise, Byron is he sometimes just to me feels like he's a spare wheel on commentary. He's just like he randomly just pipes in with a random bit of information. I've always been much more a fan of the two-man team on commentary. But don't get me wrong, so when he was with Corey and Cole on their three-man team, those two, Corey and Byron, would absolutely rib on each other. It'd be the funniest thing.
Absolutely, indeed. There, Tusako actually says that I swear I unintentionally blacked out during the whole Thunderdome era. I don't remember any of this so far. We're going to try and jog your memory as we go along, Kyle. So don't worry, we will do that indeed for you. But we'll have to wait and see. Richard is in the house as well. Good to see you, Richard, and I hope you are keeping well. We're going to keep things though Payback 2020, so make sure to keep the comments based on that show, and then we'll give you a proper shout out. But we'll go into what the video package of this show was. So pretty much it was hyping up all the matches on the show, really, using the theme song for Payback. Of course, it shows Bray winning the Universal Championship in the main event of SummerSlam against Braun Strowman. Roman Reigns making that a return, attacking both guys after that match. Of course, showing Randy Orton beating down Drew McIntyre, with Keith Lee saying he will fight for his friend Drew. Hyping up the women's tag title match, the Mysterios versus Seth and Buddy Murphy. We get a throwback quickly to Eye for an Eye. Who remembers Rey Mysterio losing an eye at Extreme Rules? I try and black out on that one as well, Carl, so don't worry. And obviously, Roman Reigns saying he will win his Universal title that he never lost. We will see Roman Reigns, of course, with the wise man Paul Heyman to end off that video package. So pretty much not based around one match, kind of based around the whole show there, really. Kind of giving you the call-up of what's to come, really. What did you think of this?
It's a very I don't know, I wouldn't say dated because it feels like obviously a Vince McMahon-esque package, whereas obviously more recently Triple H or whoever has been behind creative has been focusing mostly on this Bloodline storyline, which, to be fair, okay, it is the biggest thing, but I actually appreciated that it showed everything that was going on in the pay-per-view because it just it gives you an intrigue as to what to expect with the next sort of 2.5 hours, really. But I say I can respect it. It's just it's a bit of a throwback version, really. You don't really get them too much anymore.
No, I see your point with that. I think for me, looking at it, I mean, one thing that people may forget is that this show was exactly 1 week after SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Usually we get like a month between PLEs, pay-per-views, whatever you want to call them. This was just 1 week. They literally did SummerSlam, they had a Raw, they had a SmackDown, then they had this show. So they had no time to build this up. So literally everything from SummerSlam carries over. And to be fair, I think that this video package shows that they've had a week to put this together. So they're pretty much just thrown everything at the wall and seeing what sticks from the show. That's what I took from it. But I wouldn't call it generic, if you will, but I kind of felt like it was, like you said, we've seen much more spectacular stuff in recent video packages. I mean, obviously, I don't expect the likes of celebrity being involved every time, but this felt quite bland for my taste. But going into it, I love this as well. Kyle was actually at that SummerSlam virtually. We'll have to go back and watch over. Whereabouts were you in the crowd there for that? Was you somewhere we could visibly see you on the TV? That would be quite cool to see and go back and check out.
Do you know the best part? My daughter was asking me earlier when I was watching it. She was like, how do you get to be on one of the tellies? And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's like a website. You had to register on for a certain time to have an opportunity. And I was like, I can't believe people actually did that and sat there and just had their face on a monitor, even though like I know pretty much some of the times that they used repeated runs of people on those screens. Like they couldn't fill it out all the time, so they would use rerun versions. It was madness.
I was tempted to try and do it actually at one point for a PLE, but the problem for me was that the same as every story, the show's always so late. So it's kind of like, can I guarantee that I'll be awake when the show finishes? Can you imagine me with the screen just being asleep like that, like halfway through?
Do you remember the early ones when you had people genuinely sleeping on it? Like the video camera would be on it and there'd just be people asleep sideways, and then like they used to get people putting up like wrestlers from other companies and wrestlers who shouldn't be mentioned, and it was a really, really sketchy time, man. Really dodgy.
I remember the time Kenny Omega was seen on one of those screens. I believe
That's
it was
the
during
one.
the SmackDown. But
I think
yeah,
Enzo was on one at one point as well.
Well, Kyle actually said he didn't see himself, but apparently he was live. He remember getting a countdown and everything. That's pretty cool. And actually, he does remember the reference you're making there also. Well, we'll go into things then, and we'll talk about what our first match of the show was. It was for the United States Championship. It was Apollo Crews, the champion, defending against the Hurt Business's Bobby Lashley. Now, apparently, Apollo Crews had beaten MVP at SummerSlam, and MVP had said, well, now you've got to deal with the Almighty. You've got to deal with Bobby Lashley. And of course, the last time these two had been around one another, Apollo Crews was sent home for a month to be with his family. So he said, pretty much, we're going to get the same just again. This was pre-Cedric Alexander. We only had MVP, Shelton, and Bobby Lashley a part of Hurt Business at this point as well. Immediately, I must admit, just seeing the idea of the early stages of the Hurt Business, I kind of got happy vibes just seeing it.
I did, yeah. It was I mean, it's like one of the things. It's one of the factions where everyone loved it, and it just didn't. Unfortunately, someone somewhere, namely a 70-something-year-old man, just apparently didn't see legs behind it. But yeah, it was one of them amazing things that could have gone on to be truly spectacular. But hey, maybe his new iteration with the Street Profits will go slightly better. So we don't know. We'll wait and see with that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very early days with it, of course, and obviously the Street Profits have suited and booted as well, just like we've seen here with the current incarnation. Do you think they'll go with Hurt Business 2.0, or do you think that they will go and originate this up and give them like a different name?
I think they would go with a different name completely. I mean, unless they want to do a story with MVP and like a faction versus faction thing where Omos, Shelton, and Cedric go up against Bobby and the Street Profits, maybe. I don't know, but nah, be original. Come up with something different.
I hope they come up with something a bit different. That's what I would like to see go down. But obviously, going into the match, then give you a bit of a rundown how it all played out. There was a powerful start from Lashley, but Apollo does get himself into the action, hitting a moonsault off the apron to the floor. MVP and Shelton are ringside, and they do stop Apollo from taking advantage, standing in his way. We find Lashley lifting Apollo up in the ring and drops him neck first across the top rope. Then he bounces off to hit the floor. Very impressive looking spot. Followed by running with Apollo on the outside into the ring post, something that actually Lashley's been quite commonly doing over the last couple of years as well. He also hits a Dominator in the ring for a 2 count, goes for the hurt lock, but is countered into the turnbuckle. Apollo then actually hits 2 German suplexes, followed by a frog splash. That is for a 2 count. Apollo runs the ropes, and Lashley then hits a one-armed spine buster, applies the hurt lock, and then wins the United States title. And of course, not just applying the hurt lock, but actually laying down, wrapping the legs around Apollo as well there. No way out for it. And of course, MVP grabs a photographer as Lashley is celebrating, and we see a photo taken of the new champion with MVP and Shelton, and we get screenshots of the new champion on screen as well. But not to actually end the segment that way, Apollo Crews does attack Bobby Lashley from behind. MVP and Shelton look like they're going to attack Apollo, but he does manage to get away, and he declares he's going to win his US title back. And a quick spoiler alert, he doesn't. What are your thoughts with this opening match?
It was okay. It's like we was talking before, Ed. This show doesn't start off the best. This is pretty much a TV quality match. I didn't really see. It was nothing to write home about. I thought it was okay. I like Apollo Crews. I think he's a solid wrestler. I think he's kind of along the lines of Chad Gable for me. Like, I think he's a guy that if you put him with someone decent, give him some decent creative, he can probably do something really, really great. But I think like just the whole Apollo Crews Bobby Lashley thing, it seemed for me, thinking about it now, the whole thing just went on far too long for what it was. The end of it with the photos was cringe. I was like, why are they taking Polaroids? Why are they making this a thing now? This isn't. I don't know. It was. I can't imagine they did it much longer after that, because I don't ever remember them doing it again. But it was okay. It was just, for me, it was for a pay-per-view. It wasn't really a pay-per-view quality match. I would have put this down as a proper TV match.
No, I see what you're saying. I mean, the thing is, it's the sort of match you could have seen on Monday Night Raw. Let's be brutally honest.
Yeah.
This isn't sort of like your pay-per-view quality match. But what I would say is, it was a good TV match for sure. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I did quite enjoy the match. So like I say, I think there's a few standout moments. I felt there was things to talk about here on this stream, although I collectively threw it into one area. But for me, the problem with this match was there was never any doubt Bobby Lashley was winning this United States Championship, particularly at that time. He had the new backup as well with the, what would go on to be the Hurt Business. Looking at it long and the short, they did the job they needed to do here. But as we said, did this need to be on a payback show? Could this been on a Raw and been done that way? But of course, to have a championship change on a big show still isn't a bad thing. This match went for 9 minutes as well, which of course, like you say, perhaps I did feel it was a bit longer. I felt like it was around the 12, 13-minute mark. So I was surprised when I saw that it was actually so short a length of a match.
Yeah, it just has, like I said, if you put two good wrestlers in there like Bobby and Apollo, they have the ability to make a short match feel like it's gone a lot longer. But it just, for me, it was just nothing special. The only thing special about it was the title changed hands. I didn't feel like there was nothing to sit there and turn around. Like, imagine you have a conversation the next day at the water cooler with someone and be like, "Oh my God, did you see that Bobby Lashley Apollo Crews match?" There was none of that. It was just it was a case of, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. It's okay. I mean, Dave Meltzer, to go in his rating, gives us a 2.75 rating on the stars there. So, I mean, what would you say? Would you say it's a fair, accurate rating for it?
I would say 2.5 because just back. No, mate, no, you're right. 2.75 probably is the right, because it was a really good TV quality match just on a pay-per-view. So yeah, I think 2.75 is a fair judgment for that one.
Yeah, I think it's a fair rating, to be fair. I mean, I thought it was a solid opener. Like you say, it's nothing to scream home about. It's not something you need to go out of your way to necessarily see. But if you're going back to watch this show, it's certainly one that I would turn around and say, yeah, you would have a good time enough watching it. If you stick around for it, it's a good enough time. And obviously, It's good to see those early foundations of the Hurt Business. I like the screenshots. I wish that we got more of that. I felt it certainly was a creative thing to have done during a time where WWE is so limited to do what they can do to engage with their audience.
Yeah,
to have this new Thunderdome. So I was okay with it. But all in all, it's the right result. That's one thing for sure. And obviously, Bobby Lashley would go on to have a really good run with that championship, obviously, before he'd actually drop that championship in the triple threat match and then go on to actually defeat The Miz to become the WWE champion going into WrestleMania 37. So wasn't a bad time for Bobby Lashley. Certainly the almighty and the reign of dominance did truly begin here.
Yeah, it's a shame that I think Bobby never really deserved to be in that title frame anyway, because I think he's too good and too big of a name to be in the mid card. But hey, I can appreciate it, man. He done some good work during his time. He done what a lot of people have failed to do, which is give the US title some credibility. So yeah, I can always appreciate it for that. But I'm just glad that he's more in the main event scene now.
Absolutely. Just to make a comparison with today as well, this is obviously why I'm so pleased to see how Gunther's run has been as IC champion. You can see the way that Bobby Lashley elevated that title, took himself to the next level to be a world champion. I personally feel that we're going to see that with Gunther as well. Obviously, on the cusp of becoming the longest reigning intercontinental champion of all time, beating Honky Tonk Man's record. And as you can see, Bobby Lashley lost that title without being beaten, so he could go straight and slot in that main event scene. I'd like to see the same thing happen with Gunther when that time eventually comes, which I don't think is going to be in the too distant future. I wouldn't be surprised if Gunther is challenging or defending a world title at next year's WrestleMania in Philly, but we'll have to wait and see as that will play out. But we will move on in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen. I say keep your comments that are coming. Do keep them based on the show that we're talking about here today. Then we will bring them up on the screen. If they are unrelated to it, then I'll do my best to answer them in the comments. But of course, we are keeping things all payback here. But obviously, we get the throwback to Roman, where it actually happened, where he said he never lost his title. And he says he's actually now aligned with Paul Heyman. This is the beginning with the Tribal Chief. We see Kayla Braxton with Paul Heyman and asked how he squirmed his way to be with Roman Reigns. And Paul says he'll only answer questions that aren't personal. He's asked if Roman will sign the contract. Paul believes that Roman will, and Paul doesn't allow Kayla Braxton to go into Roman's dressing room. So there's early stages there of the Tribal Chief of what we've seen going forward, because going forward, Roman's had his own dressing room, had that sort of big sign up there. Paul Heyman has done the dirty work. We've seen countless week after week after week, Kayla, Braxton and Paul Heyman almost build their own relationship with TV screens since then. This is the birth of it right here playing out for us. It's just fun to see how little things that start there are still kind of being done to this day, and it's worked so well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a storyline going there between Kayla and Paul, definitely. But yeah, I like even watching this back, and you like even notice like seeing the clips that said like the only like days or the day before or something that he'd aligned with Paul Heyman. It was like, oh my god, this is actually like the very beginning of the Tribal Chief, and yeah, it's good to see. My only issue is this whole contract signing thing. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm surely if like you get to the point where the bell rings, that contract becomes null and void. It's like you can't sign a contract once the match is started. That's rubbish, man. But do you know what I mean? It's entertainment, I suppose.
I completely agree with you, and I had the biggest wind-up. I actually noticed I did a review of this show when it happened. I haven't had a chance to go and check it back out, but I did notice one little bit. I'm going to go and look over it properly, and I do remember that I did have that opinion at the time of like, well, surely that made no sense, and it doesn't make sense, but I've tried to kind of justify it since and thinking, well, WWE wanted to portray Roman as the heel, and it's the most cowardly thing to do. He waits for that perfect opportunity, doesn't he? So I'm guessing they just want to hit home that this guy literally, because if he signed the contract, why isn't he out there? So it's kind of that's the vibe I'm kind of going with. But at the same time, of course, it's extremely valid point. But another valid point as well is JBL's interaction with Keith Lee backstage. Clearly, putting the mind games in there, putting the feelers in there. You got a big time match with Randy Orton coming up later in the evening, kind of saying, you know, you have a chance to make yourself a millionaire, but also at the same time, there's no shame losing to someone like Randy.
Isn't JBL the one that gives him the Bearcat name at some point in the future? I'm pretty sure it is JBL, and I think this was the beginnings of that as well.
I'm actually not sure. That's going to be my answer, but I don't know. That might need to be a Wikipedia search on that one, or a Google search of some description, but I'm not entirely sure. One thing's for sure, though, is Keith Lee was kind of food for thought after having the interaction with JBL, but certainly there was no question one of the biggest matches in Keith Lee's career, obviously, when it comes to later in the evening against Randall Keith Orton. Excuse me. We get a throwback as well to Talking Smack. The Miz explained he dropped gimmicks to become a main eventer, asking if Biggie would do the same. And Biggie said it would be just like himself, just like these New Day buddies. They made something work because they did what it felt right. I liked that segment from Talking Smack.
Say that again, Steve. Sorry, I didn't hear that last bit. You just broke up slightly.
I said I liked that segment from Talking Smack. I thought it was really good with Big E.
Yeah. No, do you know what? The Miz has just that ability to rile people up on Talking Smack. That just seems to be his thing. Like, obviously, there's the infamous one of him and Daniel Bryan where he flips out completely, and you can tell that it's a shoot promo from the Miz on that. So yeah, like I said, I love it when the Miz does this kind of stuff. And yeah, Big E, the passion that he has for it is amazing. My only issue, like we'll talk about more when we get into the next match, or into Big E's match, but it was entertaining, man, and it's a shame that they stopped doing that show, or the same with the Raw one, because you could actually use this as a plinth to really evolve some minor stories into some major things, man. Like that Miz Daniel Bryan one was just, like I said, it was simply amazing, and like it added so much fuel to their rivalry.
It was must see back in the day. Nowadays, when you have like the SmackDown Lowdown and like Raw Talk, it's glorified couple of backstage promos. You know that it's kind of scripted, thrown together, and it just doesn't feel like you need to see it. Maybe if people do and you enjoy it, power to you. But I just 99% of the time, I don't see it referenced on WWE TV afterwards. You've kind of it just doesn't feel like you're missing anything.
It's the same with the network exclusives. Like you tend to see some decent things happen on the network exclusives, and nothing ever comes of them. It's like what was the one I saw yesterday? In fact, it was Maxine and Ludwig Kaiser. Man, Ludwig Kaiser is the biggest creep going in WWE at the minute. But hey, it's entertaining as anything, and hopefully it will play into for some reason Ludwig's match with Chad Gable next week.
It'll be interesting to see how it'll play. I've not seen that segment up to this point, so I'll have to wait and see. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to go and check it out.
Yeah, he's the biggest creep, man. Seriously, it's good.
To be fair, what I've seen on Raw, he definitely is playing into that role. But I must admit, Ludwig Kaiser, for me at the moment, I am enjoying his work, despite how creepy he is becoming. Certainly, I love the he's got the true villainness and the true voice that goes with it. Also, he kind of feels like a proper Bond villain. He's got going down at the moment.
Villain, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
really does.
He's really good, man. Yeah, I like it.
He could join Christian Cage wearing a turtleneck. That's how much he's got it down to a T at the moment. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We'll move on to match 2 in the meantime. Anyway, Big E versus Sheamus. Sheamus actually though did answer this statement, actually saying that actually people were saying were the New Day holding Big E back? Well, actually, no, they're actually propping him up, and that Sheamus is going to put him in his place on this show. Big E missing a splash on the apron, which allows Sheamus to take advantage. Sheamus targeting the left leg throughout the match using different rest holds and using a variation at one point of the execution. Bit of a nod to Edge there, of course, especially after we know recently of their match on SmackDown for the 25th anniversary for Edge. But Big E does get to the bottom rope at the time to break that submission. Big E also slaps the leg back into action to land a spear through the ropes to the floor. Always one of those spots I always thought was dangerous for Big E. But Big E goes for the big ending, but Sheamus counters and uses a heel hook, but E manages to punch his way out of it. Sheamus goes for the bro kick, but is countered with a powerbomb, and then Big E finally lands the big ending for the victory. What are your thoughts with this match? Another TV style match, if you will, but I actually really enjoyed this one.
It would tell you what, for two big guys, the fact that we got a lot of mat-based wrestling, some submission-based wrestling was fresh to see. But yeah, I'm on the same level. It was a very TV-based match. I know what you mean by every time Big E does a dive through the ropes, like since what's happened to him, my brain still can't adjust to it. So every time I watch him do something like that, I'm like, you know what's coming. Do you know what I mean? And it's really painful to watch. But no, it's okay, man. It was the over. I don't know. Big E's thing afterwards when he was just berating Corey Graves into telling the people, and I'm like, all right, calm down. What are you going to Corey for? He's not even said anything bad about you, but. No, it's a solid match. I can't complain. It's again, it's not pay-per-view level quality, unfortunately.
The thing is, as well, they had matches where they did like this feud continued, and they did a gimmick match which went through on SmackDown. I want to say it was a Falls Count Anywhere match, something along that line, and it was a barn burn. It was a really good match, and I think it would have been really fitting for this show. But I think we were in the era as well where the TV ratings and the TV matches for Raw and SmackDown almost mattered more than what they mattered for these shows. This was kind of the bonus show before, I'm not sure if the Peacock deal was in place at this point, so I think that could be another reason why I think shows like Fox, channels like them actually got the benefit.
There was, but you got to remember that this time as well, we're getting stuff like championship contender matches, and every match is 2 out of 3 falls because they don't want no wrestling during the commercial breaks, and it's a very strange time, man. Very strange time.
Absolutely. What would be your star rating for Big E versus Sheamus?
I'd go 2.75 again. It was a very good TV show match.
I would agree with you. I'm going to go with the 2.75 as well. I just thought it was a good match. I mean, I would be tempted to bump it to a 3 just because I preferred it to the opener, and I suppose that's why I'm showing my favoritism by doing so. So yeah, I guess I'll go for the 3. But Dave has gone for 3.25, and for those that are keeping score at home, this match was 12 minutes and 20 seconds long, so slightly longer than the opener. But anything you'd like to add before we move on to our next match?
No, go for it, mate. Move on.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matt Riddle is backstage, and he's been asked about his first pay-per-view match. He's had a king's bounty put on him from King Corbin, and has said that Riddle will be a failure on tweet. In the ring, and just like he was at home, Riddle is silent and leaves. And obviously there was some personal stuff going on with Riddle at the time, so that felt like that hit home. Probably wasn't in best taste the way that was done. We also get a backstage segment as well with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler doing the Can They Coexist storyline, something we've very commonly seen with WWE over recent years. But going in then, we will start with match 3, which of course is Matt Riddle against Baron Corbin, or King Corbin, if we should say, at the time as well. Obviously, Corbin coming out on his throne to the ring. What were your thoughts with King Corbin doing the throne thing to the ring, especially in a Thunderdome as well, where no one could really bask in seeing the King?
Do you know what it could have been, especially with this whole King's Ransom thing? Like, they could have made that so much more. Like, you could have, like, if you'd have given Corbin, for instance, the US title or the IC title or something, he really could have done something good with this King's Ransom thing. And he could have turned around and said, every time he's going to have you could have put him on matches on SmackDown or Raw and said, look, oh, you're going to have a title defense against such and such. And he goes, okay, well, I'm going to put a King's Ransom on my opponent, and whoever takes him out, blah, 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 you're going to get a shot or something at the IC title. And he could have been a running gag where, like, every time he gave the next person an IC title shot match, he'd have someone else beat up the previous person to then take it, and it would have been really cool. But I was not a fan of King Corbin. I'm still down for Lone Wolf Corbin, the original iteration of him. And as for Matt Riddle, the stigma of everyone taking the piss out of his family and like how you're a bad dad and all this kind of stuff, it's just been his natural arc, unfortunately, and it just seems to have been his stigma, and he's been stuck with it ever since. But with this being his first pay-per-view event, his promo was bad. Like, it was really, like, you could tell he wasn't ready for a microphone yet, because it wasn't the most fluid and happy-go-lucky Riddle we've ever had before.
No, he's certainly come leaps and bounds since obviously really been allowed to let loose of that character. Obviously, the work with RK Bro and now the recent work with Drew McIntyre as well really allows him to really explore his character in a much more fun way. But I do feel for me here that, like you say, this is kind of a difference of Matt Riddle. We're coming up to the main roster sort of first time. He did in the Bruiserweights as well, which was quite fun back in NXT. But I think that Riddle does seem to work better in the duo rather than on his own. But at the same time, I mean, we've both proclaimed we're not the biggest fans of Matt Riddle. That's just something we've categorically said over and over again on this channel. But at the same time, when you go into the match itself, I mean, it's just a lot of rest holds for a lot of the time period. 10 minutes and 55 seconds. Corbin just wearing him down, using rest hold after rest hold. But he makes a mistake when he slides, when he slides under the ring, comes around the turnbuckle, comes on the inside, wants to do a clothesline, ends up running into it's one of the kicks. Gets a kick to the head for his trouble. Corbin later would land a deep 6, but of course Riddle would eventually hit his bro to sleep and a floating bro to pick up the win. But for the time period, you think that would be a one and done, but of course at that sort of time period, this was a new feud, so they wanted to keep it going. Corbin would attack Matt Riddle backstage, which of course, first pay-per-view, I understand you want to keep something going, but surely you just want to keep that babyface shining on top as well, not having someone take him out after the match. So I think a bit of strange booking decision for me with this match.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to make the dig about his family, but then have him beat him up afterwards, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? It's like Riddle's copped it from both sides with this one. But nothing against his in-ring. I just think Riddle was boring. I think his character is just so one-directional. I think he needs a heel change. He needs to go heel. And I want to see a heel, like, stoner character. I think that would be a much more entertaining aspect. But well, you never know what the future brings, but at the minute, he just seems to be stuck in tag team world. Like, for me, he's never going to branch out of being a singles champion, really, because I just don't find him. I don't think he gets over well with everyone. I think he hits one demographic, and that's it. As for the match, it's like we said, the last two, a very TV quality match. It's probably the worst one of the three. But like I said, the only thing I can probably give this praise for is that they're planning on doing a rivalry with this. So we're going to get 2, maybe 3 more matches out of them. So the only way is up with this, really. So I suppose that it's a case of start off okay and then just get better as you progressively go along.
Yeah, I can see your point of view with that. Obviously, it's a slow start, and obviously you can progress. If you give everything away on the first match, what's the need for the rematch? I understand where you're coming
Exactly.
from with that there, but Dave gives this a 2.75 rating. I'm surprised by that. I'm going to go lower for that for myself personally. I'm going to go with a 2-star rating. For me, I wasn't overly invested in this match, if I'm being honest, from start to finish. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'd have to say it was a 2 as well. It's probably the worst TV show match on the card. It's still okay, but it's not bad. I'd just say it was just for me it's a bang average TV quality match. So 2 for me as well.
Yeah, I think as well the fact that the rest holds and stuff like that. There's just too many of them in this match as well. Like sometimes a rest hold can be useful in the right placeholder to calm up. Well, if you have a crowd to calm them down, but certainly for a pacing of a match as well. But sometimes if you do it too much, just makes it drag out. I mean, it's 10 minutes 55. It feels like it's like 15, 20, 25 minutes. This match.
It's
so
really dragged
long.
that much.
Yeah, so for me, it's not a winner, unfortunately. But hey, that's our views. We'd love to know your views in the comments below. But obviously, rather than hype up the next tag team title match, the women's tag team title match, we'll just get a video package showing pretty much the dominance of Bayley and Sasha Banks throughout that summer as women's tag team champions.
Steve, you've missed the perfect opportunity here. It's boss time. I'm not going to miss Michael Cole saying that ever. The amount of times this guy would say, it's boss time. And I'm like, oh my God, shut up, Michael Cole. For God's sake, it's so irritating. You honestly missed a trick. You could have done it. And I would have been like, oh, but man, yeah, I honestly will never miss that in my life.
I wanted to spare you and our listeners. I thought if I do that, we're literally going to go down and lose all the viewership in one fair swoop. I didn't want to do that to everybody at this point, but I totally get where you're coming from, though. Obviously, the golden role models, not even Boss and Hug Connection, the golden role models at this point, they declared themselves. Obviously, it was Banks 2 belts or 2 belts Banks, wasn't it, around the period? And she lost her Raw Women's Championship at the SummerSlam. Bayley still has 2 championships here, still is the SmackDown Women's Champion, but also both are the Women's Tag Team Champions, taking on the makeshift tag team of Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. And I've got to be honest with you, we mentioned at the start of the show the benefit of the Thunderdome. This, it has its benefits and it has its drawbacks. This match was all about benefit. They played this match for me to perfection. I would argue and say this could be match of the night. It's certainly up there with the storytelling, the way it plays out. Thoroughly enjoyed this one.
I was going to say 4 matches in, and who would have guessed that Nia Jax would be having the best match on the card? This match was phenomenal. Shayna Baszler, unreal. Nia Jax, awesome. Bearing in mind, this is a year before she starts screaming about her hole. And Becky and Bayley, 2 of the best to ever do it in ring. Hey, see, I knew I'd get you with that at some point. But yeah, Becky and Bayley, 2 of the best to ever do it in the ring. What a fantastic women's tag team match. How the tag team division suffered when you've got quality like this, man, I do not know.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you look in the company now, 2 of them are no longer there. But obviously, it's... It comes down, they just don't put the same passion. They've never really given the women's tag team division anything more. Obviously, Baszler and Jax wanted to have an all right title reign, I suppose, afterwards. Spoiler alert, they win. But I just kind of feel to myself, whoa.
Wait, the biggest spoiler was Sasha Banks walking out with a lose face, because she walked to that ring with a face like she'd just been slapped, and it was like, oh, we can tell you're going to lose this match, Sasha Banks.
Yeah. There was moments of that in the past. I must have, I didn't clock it on this show, but
oh no, when she's standing in the ring with those titles and she looks at them and she's got the most sour face, like someone's given her like a sour drop, and she's all like, "No, I don't like this." It was it was proper lose face.
Well, unfortunately for Sasha, I really enjoyed this match, and I'm going to explain why.
Great.
I'm going to explain why, because this was a perfect story when you lead over it. And before we'd even started the match, Bayley putting the role model t-shirt over Michael Cole, still one of the greatest rivalries in modern day wrestling. Got to love it. But I mean, there's the perfect story here is a team that are on the same page. Bayley and Sasha Banks, they've been best friends. They've done their thing. The first ever women's tag team champions, a unit against a team of 2 women that are not familiar with one another. Can they coexist? But the beautiful part of the story is the tables are about to turn. The chemistry falls in place for Nia and Shayna, whilst the tactics of Banks and Bayley proved not to be enough on this night. Obviously, Bayley and Sasha have the beginning of the match on top of Shayna, but Nia enters the match, and the power game is just too much for Bayley and Sasha. There's a fun moment where Bayley's actually being dragged, holding onto Nia's ankles to the corner so Nia can make the tag. I thought it was a really fun moment.
It's great. It's great, man. This. I'll tell you what. I've never enjoyed a Nia Jax match so much in my life, but this was unreal. Yeah, like you said, the dynamic that changed, like we'll get into it when we talk about the finish, but I thought there would have been a really good way to have possibly turned Bayley face at this point. But like this was just some unreal tag team work. Shayna Baszler, my God, why we can't get this Shayna Baszler now, man? It's like some great stuff. Like the finish is just immense, man.
It truly is. I mean, you mentioned Baszler as well. When she enters the match there, obviously, some brutal kicks actually delivered to Banks and Bayley that are just against the ropes at the time and really connected really well. The challengers make the Thunderdome count as well. Like I said, that actually, you can hear them talking out loud strategy, but they believe in themselves and they actually shout out, "We can win this. This is ours to win. We can do it. We can win it." Bayley and Banks, though, do try and get back on top. We see an elbow drop off the top rope from Bayley, and then Banks hitting a frog splash on Nia Jax. The disbelief on both of the champs' faces as well when Nia kicks out. You can see that it's not enough. And like you say, that finish when it hits in, because Baszler hits with the Karafuda clutch on Bayley. And the beginning stages of Mutalok is what is mentioned there from Corey Graves. I believe it is an Indian deathlock where you have the leg hooked. Banks is trying to break up that Karafuda clutch, but basically uses the arm of Banks to choke out Bayley for the tap out. Amazing.
Fantastic. Like if you'd have had Bayley pass out, you could have had that as Bayley passing out would have been a good dynamic for a face turn for Bayley, and would have been like, I had no choice, I blacked out. Do you know what I mean? But regardless, that's just my whole point on that. But why is Shayna not doing this stuff no more, man? Because my God, tying up two of the best in the ring in one submission move and then forcing Sasha to choke out Bayley with her own arm, unreal stuff, man. Like, and as well, I even forgot to mention at the start, she has her kick-ass music as well that they changed, and she's now got generic track 4. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I really miss this version of Shayna Baszler. This is like prime NXT Shayna Baszler here, man. God, I love it.
And do you know what? That's the perfect answer as well there. It's NXT Shayna. It's what we were used to seeing back down there. The arse kicker, literally. Like, there was no one that would escape Shayna at that point here. And obviously with Banks and Bayley, the two of them together, they've dominated the summer, had all the championships, it felt. And then obviously it came to this moment here. And Banks, like we said, no belts Banks, literally lost both of them in a space of a week. And obviously Baszler just so dominant in the way that the match finished. And it's just a shame that we don't see that Baszler now. Even now we've seen the recent program of Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam. We don't see that Baszler now. You know what I mean? So I hope we get a reformation of Shayna Baszler. Apparently they mentioned her on Raw. I hope that they can actually build it to something going forward, because if she comes back like to this version, I'm excited to see what we'll get moving forward in WWE.
Yeah, my only issue is that it's Rhea Ripley's your champ, and it's like Shayna is best as a heel, and I can't see face Shayna or face Rhea at the minute. So don't know. Maybe Raquel Gonzalez takes that world heavyweight title off Rhea. Who knows? But yeah, I'd like them to. This is why they need a mid-card title for the women's division, because there's people like Shayna that's just unfortunately sitting around waiting for something to do because they can't go for the world title scene because it just don't make sense booking-wise.
No, I understand you. I think she's kind of like you said, she's the understudy to Rhea. Rhea's the top heel. Shayna's number 2. That's where it should be right now. And I think once you wrap up the Becky and Trish program, you could revisit Becky versus Shayna. There could be redemption in there. That would have been perfect for a payback, if you will. But obviously that rivalry needs to finish first with Trish Stratus. But hey, this match went on for 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Honestly, I enjoyed every second of it. I thought it was really good. Dave Meltzer only gave this 3 stars. I'm going for 3.5. I really enjoyed the story of this match. It really did.
I'm going to go over 4. I'm going to be a lot more generous for the fact that a Nia Jax match was fantastic. That alone is the biggest shock to me. I'm going to be really generous and say 4 stars for this. This was great.
What were your reaction to the interview after the match? Shayna Baszler and Ajax were given an interview segment. Shayna looked like she was going to answer the question given, and Ajax were like, "Who cares? We just won the tag titles." And Ajax just pretty much posing with the titles, kind of almost sticking her tongue out as well. It was a bit of a wacky moment.
Almost like foreshadowing, really, with how their relationship goes over the whole reign with these tag team titles. But it is what it is. I'm never a fan of in-ring interviews after matches. I think they're really pointless. Like, I don't mind backstage, like 5-10 minutes later. I just don't understand why an interviewer would get in the ring straight after a match and go, "Oh, so you're tag champs. Well done. How do you think it went?" Well, it just doesn't make sense.
I suppose let them have their moment and see how they react afterwards. You know, I get your vibe with that entirely, 100% there. But we will move on in the meantime, and obviously we have a video package of Randy Orton and Keith Lee. Of course, Randy Orton taking out Drew McIntyre with 3 kicks to the skull as well, giving Drew a hairline jaw fracture. Keith Lee debuts on Raw. They have a match on that night as well. Keith Lee wins by DQ, and the rematch is set here for Payback. We mentioned about NXT themes being changed. Keith Lee's, of course, very early gets changed on his debut to WWE on the main roster, including that first night on Raw and including here on Payback. You get the beginning of Baszler to his glory to then the most generic Superstar 7.
Track 5.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much what we're getting for it. What were your thoughts here of Keith Lee, obviously? Because at this point, he had come up as well. He got a lot of bashing online as well because fans were not happy with the fact as well that he was his ring attire changed as well when he got called up. So, I mean, a lot of things had happened in the quick time for Keith Lee. What were your thoughts?
Well, the fact that WWE sat on this guy for like 18 months before they even did anything in NXT of all things. True. Is a shocker in itself. So, like, they signed him, he sat in the crowd at a takeover, and then we didn't see him for like a year and a half. For me, Odyssey Jones is doing the exact same thing at the minute. I know he's been injured, but like every time he gets some sort of momentum, they just take him off TV again. But it really irritates me that he was one of the ones that was let go, because there's the whole in-ring moment with these two is fantastic. And I know he's not a body guy, but Keith Lee is a really special talent. Like, he can do so much stuff that guys that size shouldn't be able to do. And it's such an amazing thing to see. That all alone can draw crowds in, because people want to see the 300 plus guy. They want to see him do leapfrogs. They want to see him do they want to see him do backflips. They want to see him do crazy stuff that high flyers should do. And the fact they released him, I just think is so criminal, man. Keith Lee was great, and to this day, still the only guy to be NXT and North American champion at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a very true point there. And I mean, the thing is with Keith Lee, I mean, like you said there, generational talent in his way, because like you say, that's the appeal. That he could do things that you thought to yourself, oh, hang on, this guy shouldn't be able to do it. The matches with Dijakovic, for example, where he would go over the top rope and, you know, steal the show. They'd have about 3 or 4 classics in NXT, those two. And obviously, Keith Lee had been brought up to the main roster, and obviously people just thought that the shine immediately was being taken away. And of course, like you say, Keith Lee, we know how the story ends. He's not with WWE anymore. He's with AEW. And arguably, I would say AEW are probably dropping the ball with Keith Lee as well. But of course, we know health has been a bit of an issue as well. And of course, we should be very grateful that Keith Lee is fine, well, and healthy, and at least able to do what he loves to do, which is compete in a professional wrestling ring.
Do you know the best thing as well is like when Keith Lee performed in front of fans, he's had some of the best reactions. I don't know if you remember the Rumble, the year Brock went 15-1 before he got eliminated.
Oh yes.
Keith Lee comes out and that crowd goes hype. They get mad for it. And you see even Brock's face. He goes, "Oh, big boy." And you just see Keith Lee and Brock Lesnar go at it, man. And it was fantastic, man. And like, just like, seriously, they really dropped the ball by releasing Keith Lee. And it's like, I know he's going on to be tag team champion in AEW, but I feel now AEW are also dropping the ball with how special Keith Lee is. And it's like, he could be an absolute superstar.
He's not on Wembley currently. He's not, at the time of recording, he's not advertised for that show. And I just feel it's a bit of
I'm lucky enough to have seen Keith Lee at a Rev Pro event in Walthamstow many years ago. And I was blessed to see him then, because I saw him then and I thought, this guy's amazing.
I would love to see him actually brought to the show last minute, whether it's a buy-in match, whether he's a special partner for somebody. Any way they want to bring him in, I would be pleased to see him in action. But Last question on Keith Lee, with current Keith Lee, before we go into the match. Obviously, Triple H took hold of creative this time a year ago. Obviously, we've seen his real life wife, Michin, Mia Yim, has come back to the company. Obviously, Keith Lee is under contract to AEW, so it kind of makes things a bit difficult had Triple H have wanted him. But had Keith Lee been a free agent, do you think he would have been one of the people Triple H would have brought back to WWE?
Absolutely, 100%. I think Triple H realized how special he was from NXT when, like you said, the amount of moments that you can think of Keith Lee in NXT, like the bit where he just launches Adam Cole over the guardrail and into the crowd, phenomenal. The amount of quality matches he had with Dijak, the moments like where the way it's shot and you just see Dijak's face and then Keith Lee just pops up behind him and you're like, oh, beautifully done. And then this match alone, it's just unreal. Like, you could sit there and turn around and go, I could see Gunther and Keith Lee doing an absolute banger. It would have been amazing.
I want to see that now. I really want to see that match. Well, I'll tell you what, you mentioned about how good this match is. Let's talk about it. It's less than 7 minutes long, and they get everything they need to in that time as well. Keith Lee getting the upper hand at the start. Randy, a bit annoyed about it as well, stares down Keith and demands his respect and lands some chops in there. So really loud chops as well. Perfect again, like we said, playing into the Thunderdome era. There's no crowd. Let's make it as loud as possible. It's really going to hit in at home. Turn those mics up and, delivered it perfectly. But Keith Lee lands his own chop as well, which is called the Grizzly Magnum, which was said by Tom Phillips as well there. Lee misses a shoulder block, though, and goes into the turnbuckle, the ring post, and goes to the outside. This leads him near the announcer's table. And, of course, Randy Orton, announce table, you know where we're going. He lifts Lee up for a backdrop onto the table. The table doesn't break.
Exactly.
It usually made of like feathers or something. This one was
breeze normally knocks them over.
I know this one was heavily enforced. I can tell you, 'cause it's not the last time it's used. Lee makes it though back into the ring before the count of 10. Orton perfectly uses the rest hold with the sleeper at this point for Keith Lee to get back into the action. A shoulder block then sends Randy flying out of the ring to the outside. Commentary going, they've never seen Randy being moved around like that. And of course, we mentioned the table spot on the outside. It's done the same thing to Randy Orton. A backdrop on the table. Again, the table reinforced doesn't break. It's really painful to see, but obviously quite a fun visual as well. Both of them go back into the ring. Orton catches Lee, though, to land the DDT with the feet on the ropes. Vintage Randy Orton. Dare I go into my Michael Cole shoes? Orton then goes for the RKO, and it's countered into a spirit bomb, which gives Keith Lee the victory in 6 minutes and 55 seconds. You could say all killer, no filler.
It is fantastic. And you know the best part is the sell job that Randy does on that spirit bomb, because he hits the bomb, gets the 3, and then Randy just flops and ragdolls over, and he's just like, you know when someone's wiped out and they're just face first in the floor with the rest of them all bunched up? Randy sells it beautifully, man. And like, my God, his powerbomb is so cool, man. It's like the most amazing thing to watch. I love seeing it. This match, unreal, hard hitting. Could watch it many more times over. And just because I've been saying it all day, Randall Keith, na 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 na. Now get that out of your head.
I tell you what, I've been singing it for the last hour that you've been talking to me about it. So I dread to think our viewers will probably be doing the same as well. So at least you know who to blame.
Yeah, but it be.
For me personally, this is arguably the biggest win of Keith Lee's career in WWE. Randy Orton, multi-time world champion, putting over a new talent as well in that short length of time. That's not something Randy would do for just anybody. He must have had some high hopes on Keith Lee at that time.
Yeah. My only issue is that Michael Cole uses that same phrasing with the Riddle Baron Corbin. Oh, this is Matt Riddle's biggest win of his career, and I'm like, it's Baron Corbin in a 10-minute or 15-minute match on a pay-per-view. It's not that great, but yeah, this one, Keith Lee winning against Randy Orton is a much bigger deal. And it's, again, like I said at the start, before we got into the details, it's just a shame of what we could have got if they'd kept Keith Lee, because he was phenomenal.
I totally agree with you. And the thing is as well, Matt Riddle, didn't he beat AJ Styles in his debut? So clearly Baron Corbin, King Corbin, was not the biggest win of his career. But
first pay-per-view win, I think, was, they said, for Riddle.
There you go. That certainly would be the case. But all in all, Dave Meltzer only gave this a 2.25 star rating.
So Dave Meltzer can do one. This was great. I'm going to go 3.75 just because for 7 minutes, it's highly entertaining. It's hard hitting. We get some great in-ring chemistry, in-ring communication between Keith and Randy. The chops were magnificent. The spirit bomb at the end was magnificent. The indestructible announcers table. So I'm going to go 3.75 for me.
I like it. 3 stars for me. I was very happy with the match. Like you say, it delivered and ticked all the boxes. But yeah, I'm going to go for a 3. There's no real any more reason of why I've gone a bit lower than you. I've agreed it for all the same reasons, but I just felt to myself, still my favorite match at this point is the women's tag team titles, so I can't give it higher than that.
Yes, fair enough.
We go backstage. Kayla Braxton is with Paul Heyman again. Paul kind of says, well, Roman promised he would sign the contract. He offered a prediction, but not a prediction, but a spoiler. They would leave the Universal Champions. I'm guessing Roman will be a part of that match. Sorry.
I think we're both suffering with it today, man. Both got dry throats.
Unfortunately, yeah, I've been a little bit under the weather in the last week, which is why I've not done content recently. So you can probably tell, first video back as well, not quite at the races at this moment. But yeah, virtually. But don't worry, if you're watching this, you should be safe. Fun enough as well, it's a pandemic show, really, that we both got coughs while this is going on. But anyway. Ironic, isn't it? Yeah, you can't make it up. But anyway, we'll move on to the next match anyway. And let's quickly get to the right area of the banner. We got Ray and Dominik Mysterio, the Mysterios, against Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy. Obviously, NXT, I know you've been looking forward to calling a Murphy match for quite a while on this channel.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen at this point he's called Murphy because I know this is the point where this is the start of Vince taking away people's names, and apparently he doesn't like the name Buddy. So, but yeah, no, I'm always excited to see a Murphy match. It's just a shame that it's in this dynamic, and this story just feels like it goes on for the entire pandemic. And it's like at one point they're all against each other, and then Murphy kissing Dom's sister, and then do you know what I mean? Dom and then Ray then break up, and then now we've got Dom being a complete pain to Seth, who's the champion because he's by a Judgment Day. It just feels like a story that's gone on for 3 years.
I know exactly where you're coming from, obviously, and with the video package is a good highlight because, like you say, this isn't the end of the story, but certainly this famously begins with eye for an eye. Obviously, who can remember Rey Mysterio losing an eye against Seth Rollins at Extreme Rules 2020? The pandemic era was wacky, ladies and gentlemen, for those that have not gone and seen it. Obviously, we see Kendo Sticks also beating down Dominik Mysterio. I thought that was actually a good segment when they did that back in the day. Seth said, making sacrifices for the greater good. The Mysterio legacy will be the ultimate sacrifice. And we do see as well at the SummerSlam match with Dom and Seth, Dom's first match ever in WWE, the drama unfolding as well with Ray handcuffed to the top rope as Seth beats Dom with a curb stomp. Going into the match itself, to be honest, I don't have so many notes. The thing is, the match quality is really good, but there isn't so much detail until we kind of get to the latter stages of the match. Obviously, Dom is being beaten down until reversing Murphy on the floor, throwing him into the barricade. Seth missing a leap, also going to the barricade. Seth goes for a buckle bomb, but Seth ends up actually going into the corner. It's countered with Ray. Murphy kicks Seth as we go towards the finish. Ray slides under the ring to do a senton bomb onto Seth into the barricade. Dom hits a 619 and a frog splash for the top rope for the win. And Seth very unhappy with his disciple Murphy after the match and actually walks out, leaving him behind. Trouble in paradise, as they say. Like I say, I think a lot of the detail really falls into the latter part of this match, really wants story basis, but the match quality is decent throughout.
Yeah, no, it is a really good, solid tag team match. I think a lot of people were really skeptical at this point about Dom's in-ring ability. I think people seem to forget that his father is Rey Mysterio, and do you know what I mean? He's probably one of the few people that's going to have had a really good education and, do you know what I mean, upbringing as part of professional wrestling. Like I said, he for his second match only on TV, fairly good. It's strange seeing baby face Dom again because obviously he's short hair and he's less tattooed and he's not saying mummy half the time and having a questionable relationship with Rhea Ripley, who is ironically Murphy's real life fiance. So anyway, but otherwise it's a simply good match. It's just a shame that obviously Murphy's just in this dynamic to be the guy that takes the pinfalls for Seth, unfortunately. But he has a great showing. He always has been one of my favorite wrestlers, like especially when he was doing cruiserweight stuff with Mustafa Ali. But just for me, this story, unfortunately, I know in the back of my mind, it just goes on forever, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does take away a little bit, but one thing that I said there is layers to this. There, I didn't think of the Dominik and Murphy stuff, but clearly a bit of fun for 2023. But obviously, as well, Dominik picking up the win over Murphy to pick up his first win in WWE through this tag team match as well. The Mysterios finally getting a bit of redemption as well at this point, because like you said, this has gone on for months already. It does continue on through to the 2020 draft as well, which of course they all end up on SmackDown because they're all on Raw at this point. And then I think they have a match where it kind of has to finish after that. They can't do it again afterwards, so it actually doesn't officially finish the feud later on. But good to see the Mysterios got the win here. Feels like the right result. Obviously, like you said, there's more to come with Aaliyah and Murphy as well, so the storyline isn't finished by a long shot. But all in all, Dave Meltzer's give this a 3.5 star rating. The match was the longest on the show as well, at 16 minutes exactly. What will be your rating for the match?
We're going to go 3. I think it was a fairly decent match. It's always fun to see Buddy Murphy. Like I said, it's always fun to see Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins in a tag team dynamic. And for Dominik being his second match ever and in a tag team capacity, I thought it was really good. So I'm going to say 3.
I like it. 2.75 for me. Really good match, really good in ring quality. Lacked a bit of substance up until like the final 3-4 minutes for me. That's when I started making real serious notes from that. I had stuff that you know, say we've got discussion points here. So that is my reasoning of why perhaps it would have got a higher rating had there been more meat to the bone, if you will. But so all in all, was a fun match. Definitely worth going to check out. After this, then we go for the video package, which will lead us to the main event. So we'll bring that up on the screen for you right now. Of course, it'll be the Fiend, Braun Strowman, and Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, a triple threat, no holds barred match. Of all triple threat matches, though, were kind of anything goes. But hey, WWE wanted to make sure that you knew it was no holds barred. But in perfect way that you knew they had only a week to prepare for this show, the Fiend defeats Braun Strowman in a video package at SummerSlam to win the Universal Championship. Of course, Braun had been the champion since WrestleMania. Roman returns to take out both guys. Roman's smack talking both guys as well. He says that the title's always been his. We go fast forward to SmackDown. Vince McMahon wants Adam Pearce to get all 3 guys to sign the contract ahead of Payback. Braun Strowman signs it. Bray Wyatt signs it as well, with Postman Pearce in the Firefly Funhouse.
Great.
Fun times. And Roman says he will sign the contract if all things are fixed that he wants changed in the contract, and he'll win the title that he hadn't lost. That's not a prediction, that's a spoiler. And of course, then the camera pans out because that's Paul Heyman's line, and we see Paul Heyman aligned with Roman Reigns, where then Paul Heyman simply says, "Believe that." The alliance begins. We have the tribal chief and the wise man. Obviously, that is a video package, and just because we've not really had the chance to talk about that moment, what was your initial reaction when you first knew that Roman Reigns was going to be aligned with Paul Heyman on that return in 2020?
I mean, I suppose in the first thought of it, it has to be seen as a major plus, because Roman he's kind of like everyone really that's ever been a top guy. They've always needed someone to talk on their behalf to start with, and then you just have to let him evolve and find his character. And Paul Heyman's just always been, he probably is the best ever manager / entourage / advocate / whatever. Do you know what I mean? And it was a solid, safe bet. I love seeing Paul Heyman on TV. He knows how to get a crowd going. So it was just, I think it was just a finally where we can all sit there and go, finally, we're getting a proper heel Roman Reigns. They've put him with one of the best heels in the business. So it was always a blessing.
Absolutely. For me, when I saw this partnership together, I was like, wow, this is something that Roman could do with, because we always felt at the time that Roman wasn't the strongest promo, the babyface material wasn't working. The fact that he'd come back, and you could just even see that sort of like the contract stuff where it was like, I'm not going to sign this. Like, you could just see a difference of Roman Reigns automatically, kind of like what we're kind of getting now. This guy was he was calling the shots. He knew he was the chosen one. He knew he was going to get what he wanted. He was that big deal. And it was like, now he's got Paul Heyman, an advocate by his side, who's been there and done it with some of the biggest names around possible. You mentioned Brock Lesnar. We talk about CM Punk. We talk about, many people Paul Heyman's been aligned with throughout the years.
Axel.
Well, I wasn't going to mention every top star that he's been with, but, one of the first matches in Payback history. Yeah, anyway.
I had to do it just because he has been thrown with some shoddy people. That's all I'm saying.
There has been a few as well there, but obviously, if you haven't seen the Payback quiz, go and check that out. It's certainly a lot of fun doing that as well, myself and Nick Steve. But yeah, I mean, going into it, I do think to myself that with Roman then having Paul Heyman by his side, you kind of went, this is a partnership that can really work. And I think with the test of time we've seen, it really has.
Yeah, it's 3 years later and he's still champion. So yeah, it's obviously paid off for him. It's obviously worked. It's made WWE money. They've run with it for God knows how long. Did we ever actually find out what the changes to the contract were? Just out of interest, like. I was like, yeah, I want this, and this changed. And I'm like, well, like a bit of context would have been nice to know why he didn't sign it straight away. It seems like a random thing to do for a storyline, but then not add no context to it.
Probably he could enter the match whenever he wanted. It was in the contract because he's not there at the start. Let's go for the meat and bones then of this, because this is not a very long match, but certainly there's quite a bit of discussion points, because Braun Strowman and the Fiend pretty much take the first 10 minutes of this match and kind of go, let's just do every big move that we know. Obviously, we get the Fiend entrance, and before we go into the match, I want to say,
I miss that.
Yeah, I miss it as well. The Fiend entrance was so cool. Even in the Thunderdome, it just felt really special. Just in the music again as well. I don't know. I've always said Eater of Worlds is my favorite Bray, but at the same time, the Fiend was always, I think, mishandled. But when I look at the potential of what the Fiend has, the Fiend obviously has been probably the most successful merchandise character of WWE as well. I just look at it and think to myself, the Fiend could do so much if brought back and actually used correctly.
Dude, Payback's the next pay-per-view, right? WWE, Roman Reigns, if he was there, this is a good way to bring the Fiend back in it, because he wants payback for losing the title that Roman still currently holds to this day. All I'm saying is, it wouldn't have been a bad shot for a decent storyline narrative come 2023. But yeah, I was always interested in the dynamic. Like, I always thought they do something mankindish, like have the three faces of Bray and have Eater of World, have the Fiend, and then what was the other? I don't know. There's so many different weird character iterations that you could pick from. But I always thought that he'd be pretty cool pulling the dynamic. But we all know the biggest problem with the Fiend was that they put the Universal title on him, and it's a character that does not need a belt. It's always been one of them things. But hey, it was one way for WWE to charge people nearly $2,000 for a replica title.
I think the other thing as well is that to actually have him challenging for titles when they had no intention of him winning it either. They had to make him indestructible, and then actually thought, well, how can we end matches? Obviously, the match with Seth Rollins and Hell in a Cell was a disaster piece. The match against Goldberg in a couple of minutes was not a good look either for someone who's meant to be unstoppable. So those things really hurt the Fiend and never really recovered from those moments.
There is one point in this match, we'll get to it later on, that I really like. Although I respect it, I think they shouldn't have done it because it just takes away from what the character is. But we'll get into it as we talk.
Well, let's dive into that match then, because we had the Fiend entrance, and obviously Braun Strowman actually attacks the Fiend during the end of that entrance in the ring to get the match started. There is no Roman in sight when this gets going. Obviously, very early doors, the Fiend hits the Sister Abigail, so we're going to get the signature. It's almost like the signature moves in the WWE 2K game is actually saved up and used at the beginning of a match there.
You start the match with them, that's what it is.
Exactly, yeah. It's one of those, there's probably put in a cheat code or something, but obviously, then the Fiend actually lands a Uranagi on Braun through the table, and lo and behold, it breaks this time. Third time's the charm on there. We see a brief cut back to Alexa Bliss watching on backstage. Nothing's mentioned on this occasion. It will be later. And the Fiend actually then reveals, and in Michael Cole's words, a mallet of some kind. Michael Cole It's a mallet, not of some kind, just a mallet. That's all it is.
Oh,
Fiend eventually.
For anyone
Go on.
old, for anyone old enough, go and Google Timmy Mallet. I was really expecting to pull out one with a little face on it.
My childhood. The Fiend eventually gets his way as well. Eventually, actually hits Braun with that mallet. Also, he was actually hit with a chair beforehand of that use. This is followed by Braun then being hit with steel steps. Bliss continues to watch on backstage. Obviously, this is in the time period where she's kind of conflicted before she joins the Fiend later on. We see the fight go on up the stage with Braun Strowman and the Fiend. Both of them go off of the stage through tables as well, which was quite a cool looking spot. They then go back to the ring and Braun heads to the top rope. The Fiend stops him and we get a superplex done off that top rope and it completely collapses the ring. I feel like I've seen this too many times before, politely, but we mentioned about 2K games. Charles Robinson, the referee, glitches like he's playing 2K20, to be fair, and goes flying out the ring. It was amazing, wasn't it?
The way he dives backwards over the top rope is phenomenal.
Absolutely loved it. What was your thought of the ring break moment?
Do you know what? It's a great way to end a match. The fact that this then has to carry on, I think, is the biggest shame. It's just one of them things, unfortunately. I know what you mean. It has been done like, I mean, what was the first one was what, Big Show and Mark Henry, I think, was the first ever one, wasn't it?
No, it was actually Brock Lesnar and Big Show back in SmackDown 2003 with Taz screaming "Holy S word" to go off the line. But the second one was Big Show, Mark Henry. The third one was Braun Strowman and the Big Show on Raw just a couple of years earlier. I want to say 2017. And this was the fourth.
Do you know what I mean? For as much as we've seen it recently in the last few years, it's still a pretty cool spectacle to see. And to be fair, they only really save it for when they've got two like super heavyweights in the ring. So I can appreciate it. Hey, it looks cool as hell, man.
To be fair as well, it does fit the narrative where this match is going to go because you've got two unstoppable monsters, and at this point, they've made the ring destroyed. And I mean, to be fair, what better moment than for Roman Reigns' music to hit? Roman comes out with Paul Heyman. Go on, finish it off.
That's sucky music, man. I'm so glad he changed his song, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, the thing is, I was thinking to myself, he kept that until WrestleMania 37 as well. It was only like April the next year that he finally changed the music over to what we've got now, the banger of today. But he comes out
so much better, yeah.
It is. He's with Heyman on stage. He signs the contract. He heads to the ring with a steel chair. But Roman doesn't use the chair to begin with. He goes to the ring, goes for a pinfall. There's a kick out with two. Tries again. Kick out with two. He tries Braun Strowman after trying the Fiend twice, but Braun kicks out with two. Roman then uses a chair on Braun Strowman repeatedly. Goes for the pinfall again. A kick out with two. Roman then goes for the Fiend, but it's countered into the mandible claw. Roman, as heel as you like, kicks the Fiend with a low blow, sending the Fiend out of the ring and out of the match completely.
That's my problem.
That's your problem. There we go.
It was like, just to add quickly to it, I think it really humanizes the Fiend and it makes him seem like he's not a monster anymore. And honestly, he's just a guy and you can just kick him in the nuts. And I think it's one of the things you should have never have done with him, is just it devalues the character. But as you were, Steve.
I know what you're saying. You don't headbutt a Samoan and you don't kick the Fiend in the groin. That's pretty much the standard rules of what we expect here. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that one. But obviously, from this point onwards, the Fiend's taken out of the match. Roman sees a vulnerable Braun Strowman, hits that spear, gets the 1-2-3. He wins. The historic reign begins. He holds up the title as well at the top of the stage with Paul Heyman to close the show, which, of course, at that point was the start of what still is the present, the Universal Champion Roman Reigns. We're now 1,087 days later, and Roman Reigns still has that championship. But before we dive into that, let's just quickly dive in, to the rest of this match. What would be your thoughts of the match, and what would be your star rating?
Actually, it's a really good match, to be fair. It's for what it was, for the stuff they put themselves through, the ring exploding, going off the edge of the stage. It's a really hard-hitting match. I appreciate it because it's like Braun Strowman isn't exactly the most... he's not exactly he's not a Keith Lee, if you know what I mean. He's not the most movable guy, and he's not used to doing all those kinds of stuff. But I appreciate this match. I thought it was really good. If anything, the match almost gets ruined by Roman Reigns joining the match. I think it's actually really good up until that point, and then it kind of gets just a bit silly and a bit stupid, and it's like, yeah, okay, it is what it needs to be to finish it. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I see your point. I mean, obviously, we mentioned about the contract thing. That is the point where you kind of go, surely would have signed it before. Like, maybe he should have come out and shown Heyman should have showed the camera. Look, he signed it. You see, it was signed like that.
Yeah.
That way, then he comes and enters the match. That's my nitpick. But other than that, I have to agree with you. Actually, watching this back over now, I feel I enjoyed this match a lot more than I enjoyed it first time round. And I've got to say, like you said there, that the Fiend and Braun had a much better showing than what they did at SummerSlam. In my personal opinion, I thought this was really good. Every move was knocked out of the park, and they really kind of went, let's just basically trash the place. That's pretty much what they went with. It's like, and I thought they did a good job of it. But obviously, Roman, it was predictable as hell. With the SummerSlam tag, no one saw it coming. Roman Reigns won the Universal Championship after returning at a SummerSlam. No one expected him to do so. A week later, that was the predictable thing. But I guess the other thing nobody saw coming was the fact that Roman is still champion now. He still hasn't been defeated since. It's absolute madness. But just to quickly say, NXT, your star rating, sorry, for this match?
Just to add on as well, I think the reason why we enjoy these a lot more now is we don't have the stigma of having to sit through the weekly product as well, like we did back then. So we didn't get the constant like bad booking of the Fiend. Like we've generally just gone back and watched it as a match and gone, you know what, it actually is a really good match. For that fact, I'm going to give it a 3.5. I think that the two of them put on a fairly decent match. They have great chemistry, obviously, together from their history together. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good.
I'm going to agree with you. It's bang on the money. 3.5 stars. Thought it was a really good match. It was about 12 minutes, 40 seconds around that mark, this match. Dave mostly gives it a 2.75 rating, which I think is a bit harsh personally. But I still class match of the night being the Women's Tag Team Championship match. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. For as much as I love the Keith Lee match, the Women's Tag Team match, like I said, Nia Jax surprised me hell out of high water. Shayna Baszler was amazing. And obviously, last time... I still do not miss that, Steve. I still do not miss it.
No, although I would love to see it back in WWE at some point. Let's quickly just go to the chat very quickly. Dom Mills in house says he did it for The Rock. Welcome, Dom. Hope you're keeping well. He did indeed there. And C Nation in the house as well. Hope you're keeping well, CD. So he's had a tough day today. He said the stream's cheering you up. And we're glad to hear that, CD, that's cheering you up. And hope that you have a better day tomorrow. Certainly, it's not fun when we have days like this. But he goes on to say as well, crazy to see Roman Reigns' Universal title reign beginning on a B+ pay-per-view. It's also crazy Gunther won the Intercontinental Championship on a random SmackDown. Yeah, sometimes they win him in the most random places, but yet they still have these magical long runs. And it just goes to show you need to see every show.
That's because that title wasn't relevant until Gunther won it, man. They couldn't get on a pay-per-view. You couldn't pay someone to put the Intercontinental title on a pay-per-view until Gunther won it.
We've been trying for years, but giving our money to WWE, but no one was. They were just ignoring us at that point. But Gunther's made that relevant indeed, and apparently he was right. Big Show and Braun Strowman broke the ring in 2017, so he was correct with what we'd said there. And obviously, it's been 2020, so it wasn't so long, but part of it. But it links to the closing big topic that we want to talk about probably for the last sort of 10 minutes or so of the stream, which is Roman Reigns' historic championship reign begins. Obviously, so we mentioned there. Roman Reigns wins the championship, something, as I said, never thought we'd see coming, which was the tagline for SummerSlam, is the fact that Roman Reigns still has this title at this point. He's collected the championships, if anything. He's collected the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 38, defeating Brock Lesnar, and has now become the unified WWE Universal Champion, having his own championship. There was a point where Heyman carried the other two belts around. I believe we will go back to the WWE Championship the day that Roman Sammartino eventually decides to lose this championship. But obviously, looking at this show, this is the starting point of what would be to be. Obviously, following from this, obviously, that's when the bloodline stuff starts to evolve. Obviously, Jey Uso will come into the conversation. Jimmy is around as well, not too long afterwards. These guys, do a dominant reign. Obviously, Usos become the longest reigning tag team champions. Solo gets involved as well. A couple of years later, Clash of the Castle. I know you remember it well. And Roman, like we said, with the bloodline, still kept to go. We've had Sami Zayn involved in there. Kevin Owens, an early challenger for this championship at TLC in 2020, and Royal Rumble still gets another opportunity trying to get involved with Sami Zayn as well around WrestleMania period this year. So a lot of things have gone full circle. We've even seen the breakup of the bloodline, and we've seen Roman versus Jay 3 years later. Things that have been done. This has been arguably one, if not the best storyline in WWE history up to this point. Some may question now, because SummerSlam has passed, whether the Jimmy and Jay stuff is right or wrong. But under the Roman Reigns banner, certainly has been brilliant. But from just watching this show alone, to see those little nuggets that we've seen there to what led to the tribal chief, the head of the table moving forward, the fact that he has the wise man in place, the fact that he's almost not willing to do things by WWE's rules anymore. It's always on his terms. He's like that mafia boss, and he shows that nice and quick there of getting the contract changed, joining the match when he wants to, because he can do. He's the golden boy. He's that chosen one. That's what Roman Reigns does. And like we said, the combinations with a Kayla, Braxton and Paul Heyman, the dynamic they've had together, some really entertaining segments over the number of years as well. This Roman Reigns championship run for me has been unbelievable. But the question I'm going to throw to you first in response to this is, did you believe this when he won this championship here, that he would still be champion now?
If you'd have told me at the time that he's going to be undefeated and up until SummerSlam 2023, I'd have been like, nah, that's stupid. That's crazy booking. Ain't no one going to book Roman Reigns to be champion that long. It's unseen. It's unheard of in the modern day. I mean, I know New Japan, I think Okada had a crazy run as champion, something stupid like 2.5, 3 years in New Japan, around about 2018, 2019, something like that. It's something I expect in New Japan because it's the way their business runs. Nowadays, I'm very surprised if we get a champion that goes 365 days plus. But 3 years later, no way, insane, man. I would have put my house on it not going that long. I would currently be homeless.
I felt the same. I felt the time when he won it, I was like, right, this is the year champion till WrestleMania next year. I didn't see it going further than that. And obviously, at that point, Roman did, and he kept winning. He's obviously aligned himself so many different championship defenses. So many superstars have come and gone. He sent some people packing out of the company as well, including Daniel Bryan, or should we say Bryan Danielson, at this point as well. So, I mean, Roman has done a hell of a lot in the time. Obviously, he's been in territories where you'd think perhaps maybe this was the right time for him to change hands. Drew McIntyre, Crash to the Castle being one. Sami Zayn, of course, in Montreal. There's been many superstars that have come and gone. Cody Rhodes, WrestleMania 39, and people still want Cody to finish the story at WrestleMania next year. But Paul Heyman recently has said, and this is a baseball reference, which I had to confirm, by the way, of what that actually meant. Paul Heyman claims we're in the third innings when it comes to this, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and CD, you're in the house 9. Still. There's 9.
There's
yeah, exactly.
9.
That. If that's the case, could we really be looking at Roman Sammartino in sort of like 4 or 5 years from now, still the champion?
I don't think we'll get 7 years straight. I think that's just a ridiculous amount of time now. Like, I'm currently looking at the longest reign, and it currently, according to Wikipedia, is 2,803 days, which is Bruno Sammartino in 1963. And I think that's just an outrageous number. Don't get me wrong, he's only like 400 days away from beating like Bob Backlund and Hulk Hogan. I think they're very achievable. I think he could still be champion by SummerSlam next year. I think that there's a chance that he could go down possibly as the second longest reigning champion of all time. But for him to go another 3 years as champion, I think is absolutely insane. For him to go Sammartino, because I mean, at some point we've got to sit there and go, bored of it now. Really am bored of it. Like, I don't know how people in 1963 didn't get bored of Sammartino, but then it's a different thing back then. It was only when it came to town, and it's kind of like, but now with how TV and entertainment is taking in now, there's only so many times I can see Roman Reigns come out with a title, and I mean, I suppose the only reason why I could say I could see him go another year is because at the minute I don't think they have anyone ready to take that title off of him. Everyone's had a crack at him and no one's won it. So who is there? So they've got to have time to build someone to be ready for that level. Who that is, I could not tell you, because I could easily say Bron Breakker and then it turns out to be Chad Gable. Do you know what I mean? I just haven't got a Scooby. By the way, I'd love to see Chad Gable do it, but I don't think it will be. But Yeah, I think at least I'd be very surprised if he does lose at WrestleMania next year, put it that way. I can see him going for at least another year.
Interesting. I mean, for me, it's fascinating to see from where we started on this show to where we are now. And like you say with Roman, for me, obviously we've gone through so many twists and turns. Obviously, Cody's had one crack. I think Cody will get another eventually. It's just whether it will be at WrestleMania 40, like many are predicting will be the case. Many are suggesting Solo Sikoa could be the one. I just don't see it myself. I see Solo being someone that gets the opportunity. I feel like he's a Royal Rumble guy. I don't think it's the WrestleMania match myself personally. I feel like he's one of those shows where it's important, but I don't see it being a WrestleMania. And the only other name that I think is viable is Gunther, because he's not been pinned or submitted in 18 months. He's been counted out by Chad Gable, but that's as far as it's going to go. Chad's not winning that championship from Gunther. I'm going to go on record and say that now. I may get some egg on my face, but I personally believe it. I think for me, Roman Reigns, the undefeated champion. Of course, he's lost one match now to Jericho at Money in the Bank this year, a tag team match as well. But he's not been pinned in a singles match for well over three and a half years. Gunther can say that as well. I feel like that's the match that could be the money match. But again, like you say, Roman could still be the guy.
Yeah, he very well could be. And like you said, I completely honestly forgot about Gunther and the fact that he's on this crazy run with the IC title. And like, he's obviously very close to beating the Honky Tonk Man's record, which is obviously how it stood the test of the time and been around for the last 30 years and no one's beaten it is quite a shock in itself as well. But he does at the minute look like the only one that's the viable option to take that title off of him. But even then, I think that WWE still want to do The Rock and Roman. And I think they still want Roman to be champion to do that. We're probably not going to get that next year. It very well have to be the main year after that. This is another reason why I can see it going another year. Because I think that the draw of The Rock losing to Roman while he's Universal Champion, and it absolutely symbolizes him as the top guy. It's the only way to do it, really, is you've got to beat your cousin who was around 10, 15 years earlier than you. So I don't know. But yeah, I'd first say Gunther at the minute is probably the only person at the minute that could take that title off of him as it stands.
I mean, you make a fantastic point as well. Wanting to do the Rock match if it's ever possible, because like you say, it's been in that pipeline, the rumor mill, the dream match for a long, long time for everybody. And obviously, when you see as well, like people come up with the ideas of other names that could go for that championship. Obviously, Roman's beat a lot of the big names. We mentioned Brock Lesnar; they've done many times before. Seth Rollins is someone that perhaps he hasn't beaten, but I reckon if they did the match again, Roman would finally get that win. I don't see Seth doing it. Obviously, John Cena is another one that has been put away from Roman Reigns as well. There's one other name you could throw in the conversation, but at the moment he's still in flavor of the month territory. You'd have to see how it'd be over a course of 6, 12, 18 months. But I mean, LA Knight is over like Rover right now. Would you ever see him get into a level where he could perhaps even challenge a Roman Reigns?
It's possible. This is the problem we have with every wrestler. It's either got to be fan work, just like a Daniel Bryan scenario, a Kofi Kingston situation, but even a Big E to some circumstances where the fans naturally get them over, or it's got to be creative. And let's be honest, WWE don't have the best track record. Their creative is pretty much 50-50. So again, it's just one of them ones where maybe it's a possibility. Never say no, I think is probably the best word.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to keep the eyes open, and we'll see how it's going to play out. But Roman, he won his championship here. He's still the champion now, and it's been a hell of a run up to this point, and who knows how long it will continue. Anything you'd like to add on before we start to wrap things up with our final thoughts of WWE Payback 2020?
No, I was just basically going on Pro Fight DB to find out about Gunther and when he last lost a match, and according to Pro Fight DB, he has not lost a singles match. Well, this only goes back to the earlier on in the year where he lost a house show to Ricochet, apparently. But I'm literally just trying to see like how far back it's been, because I know it's a stupid long time, and it's like otherwise it's tag team matches. It's like but otherwise it's house shows. There's never been. He's not lost on TV, which is, let's be honest, TV losses are the canon ones. House show losses don't mean nothing. But yeah, you're going back some serious time before he lost the TV match.
NXT is the last one I can remember against Braun Breaker just before being called up to SmackDown after WrestleMania 38.
Yeah, when he lost the championship.
Yeah, he lost the championship to Ilya Dragunov, and then he lost to lost the break.
And he's won every TV advertised TV match, apart from tag team matches, but they're tag team matches, so he's probably never taken a pin in one up until losing to Chad Gable via count out. Do you know what I mean? That's a pretty impressive run.
It is unbelievable indeed. Shout out to Tina's time in house, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you here indeed, as always. And we've got a couple more comments from CD. But before we go to those, quickly going to get your score out of 10 for WWE Payback 2020. What's your rating for the show?
For a very 50-50 show that I could have easily skipped the first sort of half hour, 45 minutes, I'm going to be generous and say 7. I think I appreciate it now more than I did then, I suppose, just because like I'm going in with it like I don't have to, like I said a little while ago, we don't have to worry about watching the weekly product anymore. And I think going in watching it, getting 3 pretty decent matches, plus it is quite a significant point to the fact that it's the start of this 1,087 day plus reign. I'm going to say a 7 out of 10.
I like it. It's certainly historic when you think back. This show actually is going to mean something forever. Payback 2020. It's not just a throwaway pay-per-view. For me, I'm going to go for a 6. I think a 6 is a good number to give this out of 10. There is some good stuff in here. Obviously, like we said, with the historic reasons of Roman Reigns, I think the main event is decent. The women's tag team title match of the night. I like the fact that there is some good usage of the Thunderdome on this show. Obviously, using the arena, obviously with the main event, being vocal, using the storylines to make them matter, being quite, verbal and getting your point across on TV. Why not? You can't hear the fans, so make your point over. So I like that sort of stuff that came out of the show. Obviously, some matches were a bit TV and a bit filler, but all in all, I thought that this was a good time. C Nation going to say great stream. Thank you very much, C Nation, for joining us. Hope you are keeping well. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And he goes on and says, well, a couple more comments just before we finish things up. He says, I still do not get why Paul Heyman has the WWE Championship and Universal Championship while Roman Reigns has the new title design. If I was WWE, I would have waited for the new champion. But waiting is how long would you be waiting for, I think is what NXT was going on before. And I think the reason that Paul Heyman was doing that was because it's seen as the Universal Championship more than the WWE Championship. And when the WWE Championship goes walking away, you're kind of throwing away 60 years worth of history. So I think that's the reason why they were doing it. But the other last comment that does come through is Roman Reigns should lose the undisputed WWE Universal Championship to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. Roman Reigns shouldn't keep going just to break more records. I think the question is, if you can keep the story going, then I'm in. But I think there will come a point, like you say.
Every time with the bloodline, we turn around and say, do you know what? I think this is dying out now, and boom, no, they just raise the bar and they just keep going. It's like pole vault or high jump. They just keep raising the bar.
Absolutely. And do you think that there's been any mistakes during this run that perhaps Roman should have lost that title?
I'm always going to say against Drew and Cardiff because it was the right time, the right place. But then there's been Cody at Mania. There's probably been about 2 or 3 times where you could probably have seen him losing it. Like even Sammy, losing to Sammy in Toronto at Hell in a Cell. It wouldn't have, I'd have been all up for it. I think it would have been one of them just like greatest moments in wrestling history. Do you know what I mean? But the story goes on.
The story does indeed. We'll have to wait and see how it's going to go on. But hey, if you're watching this in the future, you may have an idea where it led to and where it went to. But if you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the like button, share with a friend, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment in the comments below once this video is finished. Let us know what you thought of Payback 2020. Let us know what your thoughts of the stream, and let us know what you'd like to see us cover in the meantime. There are plenty of rewinds to go and watch in the meantime. Older shows, some shows in the last 10 years, some fun times for myself and NXT, so make sure to check out those videos now. Thank you all for watching. Look after yourselves and each other. This has been Payback 2020, the rewind review, and yeah, all in all, it was a good time and it was a historic time. Roman Reigns, day 1 of the longest Universal Champion of all time for sure, and on road to potentially becoming one of the longest champions of all time. He's in the top 4 as we speak.